last-minute shakeup at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. It's okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always as simple as 1, 2, 3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
what's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
You're listening to the NASM-CPT Podcast with Richey, winner of the Share Care Emmy Award for Social Storytelling and the official podcast of the National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Hey, y'all, and welcome to the NASM-CPT Podcast. My name is Richey, and today we're going to try to get a better understanding of the ankle. And the ankle's an interesting joint, but I say an interesting joint, but actually, do you know how many joints actually make up the ankle? How many joints is the ankle consisting of? Anyone? Anyone? I know you're saying it. 1, 2, keep going. 3, 3. That's right. We got 3 joints that the single ankle joint is made up of. And it's weird because we talk about the ankle joint. There's a lot of things going on at the ankle, and we just want to try to get a better understanding of what the ankle is in this particular episode. And then if you got questions about it, follow-ups, you want me to talk about something, just send me a message. Also, if you can, you get an opportunity, go ahead and like, subscribe, share with your fitness friends and family, and leave a review. They are greatly appreciated and help people find the podcast. All right, so let's get into understanding the ankle a little bit. It's made up of 3 joints. We're going to start at a joint called the talocrural joint. And then there is the subtalar joint. And then there is the tibulofibular joint, So the talocrural joint, it is a joint that connects the tibia and the fibula to the talus. Now we have to try to get something. We're going to understand something here. What we look at when we point out our ankle and the bones in our ankle, we rub the big knot on the bone on the inside of our ankle and we say, that's my ankle on the inside. And we rub the big knot on the outside of the ankle and we say, that is the ankle joint on the outside. And those knobs are actually your shin bone and the other bone next to your shin bone. So we got 2 bones in the lower leg. We got the tibia and the fibula. The tibia and the fibula. The tibia is the shin bone. The fibula is the smaller bone that runs along the outside or the lateral side next to the shin. And those things connect at the top and they connect at the bottom. And so these 2 bones, as they go all the way down to the bottom and they connect, we're going to go ahead and name one of those joints in the ankle where those 2 bones, the tibia and fibula connect. That is known as the distal tibiofibular joint, or that could be also known not just the distal, but sometimes it's referred to, let's say proximal distal. Distal. Yeah, that's how I like distal. Distal is the one that I tend to go with. I don't usually say another name for it. So I'm going to go with distal tibiofibular joint, but there is a proximal or a superior. Some people refer to it as an inferior tibiofibular joint. I usually refer to it as distal. Then there's the superior or proximal tibiofibular joint. And that's where they connect up towards the top, closer to the knee. All right, so we're going to follow the tibia and the fibula all the way down and where they connect. And where those 2 bones connect, that is an ankle joint. Many times, if you hear something like a high ankle sprain, they'll refer to those joints where the tibia and fibula are supposed to be connected and they get an ankle sprain. We get some damage going on there. Now, right there where those 2 bones connect and they create a saddle or crural, they create a saddle and it actually hugs a bone called the talus or the talus. And so we have the talocrural joint. We've got the joint that the talus sits inside of those two bones. So if you feel the bones in your high ankle, right? So you feel your ankle bones, there is a bone called the talus that fits right in between those. And that joint right there is responsible for two very important joint actions at our ankle. That is responsible for dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. Dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. And in fact, there are very few joints in the body that are hinge joints without movement in any other plane. So we have hinge joints in the body, but they've got play in the frontal plane. They might have some play in the transverse plane, but I got to tell you something. This one should be pretty much a hinge joint without any other play. There should not be any frontal plane movement. There should not be any rotational patterns or transverse plane movement. It is very specific to the sagittal plane. So in the sagittal plane, what happens at the talocrural joint is dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. But we have a couple other joint actions that take place at the ankle. And that's where we got to go underneath that talus. And so we are now going to go to a joint called the subtalar joint. All right, so let me go back a little bit. We followed the shin down and we created the tibulofibular joint. I love this because it basically tells you the name of the joint is where these two bones come together. So the tibia and the fibula come together. It's the distal or inferior tibulofibular joint. And then we've got the talocrural joint. So the talus is that bone that's saddled right in between the two bones there. And that gives us a better understanding where the talus is going. And that's above the talus or kind of surrounding the talus. And then we've got the subtalar joint. And the subtalar joint is just below the talus. And below the talus is what bone? Does anybody know? Under the talocrural joint, we've got the joint that connects the talus to the calcaneus. That's the heel bone. The heel bone is the one where we're going to see some inversion and eversion take place at the ankle. So we've got inversion and eversion at the subtalar joint. We've got dorsiflexion and plantar flexion at the talocrural joint. Hopefully not a lot of movement at the tibiofibular joint. And that right there allows our foot or our ankle to have the play that it has, and that is seen at our foot. So not a big movements at the joints, but when you have a foot attached to it, you're going to see a lot more movement that takes place. I will say this is not, when you take your ankle and you move in circles, it is not strictly circumduction. Circumduction, more at the shoulder, more at the hip, is going to be a combination of flexion and extension, AB and adduction, and a circular motion. This is very pixelated. It's very choppy in its movements. And that's because it doesn't have a transverse plane to move through. And yes, it does kind of move through that. You'll see your foot move in that direction. Not a lot of that play is coming from the ankle. That's from the eversion and inversion with the dorsiflexion and plantar flexion taking place. So there's not an actual real clean circumduction. So we don't, sometimes we'll refer to it as circumduction, but it is, it's like a false circumduction. Let me get into this a little bit deeper. I'm going to talk about some of the injuries that take place, but first this. This episode of the NASM-CPT Podcast is brought to you by NASM One, the membership for trainers and coaches. Members enjoy unlimited access to hundreds of career resources. Get the Edge app to schedule and program clients. Enjoy half off all certifications and specializations, access to free CEUs, and more. All of this for just $35 a month. Go to nasm.org/membership to learn more about NASM One. So what happens at the ankle? Well, we got this movement, and sometimes you hear people say they rolled their ankle. When you roll your ankle, that is commonly how we say it, but it is known as an inversion ankle sprain. So you kind of go on the lateral side of your foot, and the sole of your foot moves in to face the medial side. That's inversion. And when this inversion takes place, the ligaments on the lateral part of the ankle get strained or get pulled. Now let's talk about what a strain is. A strain is damage to the ligaments, and you can have a muscle strain. And this is weird. This is one of those weird things in anatomy where we oftentimes have very, very specific language. If this gets hurt, this has a name. And if that gets hurt, that has a different name. But most of the times where you have a sprain, when you have a sprain, you sprain a ligament. When you have a strain, you can strain a ligament or a muscle. So it can share a name, but sprain is a ligament issue. And so we got a inversion ankle sprain, and that ligament gets pulled. Now, the most common name of the most common ligament that gets pulled is called the anterior talofibular ligament, which connects what? The talus, talo, and the fibular, talofibular, the talus and the fibula. That's the one that gets pulled the most common. That's going to be an issue for most people when they roll their ankle with an inversion ankle sprain. Another common ligament is the calcaneofibular ligament. Calcaneus, the calcaneus and the fibula, one of the ligaments that connects the calcaneus to the fibula. And that one oftentimes gets strained as well. And so there can be damage, and there are more ligaments on the lateral part of the ankle that can become damaged as well. But these are the ones that are primary. But why do we never hear of, or rarely ever hear? I'm not going to say never, but why don't we hear of anything called an eversion ankle sprain? It's only an inversion. The eversion ankle sprain you rarely hear about. Let me tell you what, if you did roll your ankle in eversion, you could, and some people do, damage a joint called the deltoid joint. The joint is going to be the ankle joint, and it is the deltoid ligament that gets damaged. Now, the deltoid ligament's a very broad ligament. So in one way, it's a bigger joint, a bigger ligament, which is why it could be more protective, but that's probably not why. And remember the word deltoid. Deltoid, delta. Can I help you? Help you. What is a delta? A delta is a triangle. So it is a triangular shaped ligament that attaches at the ankle. And it does help to give broad stabilization. But that's probably not why the medial ligament in the ankle doesn't get hurt. What tends to happen is that when we evert in an eversion ankle sprain, do you ever see those pictures in the book where it talks about squatting? And when you squat and evert, it shows the foot turning lateral. The foot turns away from the midline of the body. And then the shin rotates medially towards the midline of the body. The knee rotates toward the midline of the body. The femur at the hip joint moves towards the midline of the body. So what tends to happen in a medial ankle sprain rather than a medial ankle issue, it's a knee issue. If my foot everts and my arch collapses, my knees oftentimes knock together, and you're far more likely to get a medial ligament sprain in your knee before you would generally get hurt at your ankle. So when the eversion takes place, the knees tend to collapse, and you're going to get this significant valgus position that takes place at the knee. And that can strain the ligament at the knee, the MCL, which I've had issues in surgery on my MCL, a little bit of damage to my ACL, but not bad enough to require surgery, but certainly it still has a lot of play in it. But that MCL got significant damage when I had my knee issue. And what was it from? It was from doing a tumbling routine. And when I landed, I went into significant valgus. My knees knocked together. So I'm going to say that's not good. And what most likely happened, aside from the tumbling routine, is that the feet turned out, the knees knocked, the hips flexed, all my weight went down, trying to decelerate force. And that's how the knee got injured, which we'll get into a little bit more in our later episode in the week, where we talk about what goes on at the knee. And to let you know, knee, it's not your fault. All right. Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, share with your fitness friends and family. If you got questions for me, you can hit me up. Do so on Instagram at dr.rickrichey, or you can email me, rick.richey@nasm.org. Y'all keep inspiring people to fitness. Thanks for listening. This has been the NASM CPT Podcast.